For me, Bethel is home. Okay, so I wouldn't consider myself a visitor per se. And I'm grateful that you've given the opportunity for us to discuss this topic. Interestingly, I would have wanted this whole thing to be a family discussion, okay? So it will not take the typical academic setting, but we'll try and understand what the issues are and what it is now and why we need to be abreast with the information that is out there. So, wow, I'm looking around and looking at a number of people here, but anyway, we'll go on. Why should we be talking about HIV? And then somebody will ask, what is HIV? I mean, why are we bothering ourselves? Well, some years ago, we would have said that it shouldn't have been a very common discussion amongst Adventists. But the story has changed. Today, I can tell you I have a number of patients that I care for who are Seventh-day Adventists. But then, when I am caring for patients, I stop thinking about how they got themselves in that state. I only think about what I can do to make them live a fairly healthy life. And that's all I think about. But as we look at the possibilities of how one can become retropositive, you come to understand that there were issues. Okay? So, to begin with, please permit me to take this call. Yeah, please start. Yeah. So today I would want to help us appreciate the issues a bit more, so that even if we didn't care that much about the issue, we would have some solid information to at least be having us of what it is like for us now. Fortunately for us as a country, we've kind of escaped the yesterdays when it was a real big problem. I mean, every radio station talked about the problem because we felt that it was necessary. Today, we aren't talking about it that much, but it still doesn't mean that the problem is curtailed and gone for good. We still have issues. When we get to the epidemiology and the demographic information, you come to understand that it is still an issue. Where I work, in Greater Accra, it is one of our centers for treatment. And so I see all shades of people coming in for treatment. My challenge is society today has changed. And things that hitherto were taboo or things that we cannot imagine have become the normal. People do it without any fear. And so we really have to talk about this issue. And especially so for this vicinity. I'm talking about Osu. Actually, I'm looking at Oxford Street. Amongst the places in Ghana where this condition has a heightened number is Oxford Street, Osu. So you see, it is important we talk about it. What are we talking about? We are talking about HIV. Somebody will say, what is HIV? For the content of my discussion, we'll be looking at what it is, the difference between HIV and AIDS. We'll be looking at how it spreads, and then we'll also look at how it does not spread, because there are a few myths here and there. Some signs and symptoms, but then I'll make you understand that for signs and symptoms, don't wait to see signs and symptoms, because a lot of people who are HIV positive don't have signs and symptoms. Then we'll look at the testing modalities available. The prevention methods are what would drum a lot so that at least we'll stay away from the challenge. Then we'll mention a few of the treatment modalities available, and then we'll look at another aspect of it that needs to be talked about, ending the stigma. And with that, I'll round up and then give us more time to ask questions. In fact, if my whole time is 60 minutes, I would rather do 20 minutes talking, and then we ask questions with the 40 minutes. That way I'll go home feeling that at least we were able to communicate. I said something you understood, and you told me that what you've understood is A or B. So what is HIV? It has a big name, human immunodeficiency virus. Remember, it is a virus. And because it's a virus, it's a bit different from the common things we know that cause disease. Practically, we are talking about bacteria. There are fungal diseases, but most of the conditions that we manage in this part of the world are more of the bacteria infections. But this is not a bacteria. This is a virus. How does it differ from bacteria? So, because it's a virus, remember, no amount of antibiotics will take care of it. How does it perform its degradation? We'll be looking at that later. Remember, it's a virus that attacks the human being's genetic makeup in order to continue its next generation. So without human beings' genetic makeup, it cannot go to the next level. But which part of our genetic makeup does it need? It is some cells that are involved in our immune system. So, immune system, what are we saying? We are saying that there are certain things in our body that should help us fight infection. And we have several forms of the immune system, but this is making us understand that our immune system is very important to keep us healthy. So if there's anything that would affect our immune system, then it renders us helpless. It's just like the police in this country, whose function is to ensure that there's peace and order. Imagine there's no police in this country. When you have a problem, who do you run to? Nobody. That's basically the issue with HIV. With HIV, it's a virus that comes in to attack our immune system, especially the CD4 cells, breaks them to a point where they are unable to defend us, and then we are open for everything and anything. So the very things that will not do us any harm, the very things that we live with. Remember, we live in this world with numerous bacteria, fungi, viruses. But we are living in some very beautiful commensalism. I mean, they don't destroy us, we don't destroy them, we are living together and there's peace. But it gets to a point when these things now become deleterious to our health. And that's when our immune system is unable to protect us. So that's what happens. Then when this happens, it weakens the body's ability to fight infections. Because we've been talking about HIV, let me extrapolate it to the worst scenario. So in this discussion, our intent is to look at HIV. But hey, when the HIV stays on and nothing happens to curtail it, it grows to its big brother, AIDS. So AIDS, which is AIDS, is a full-blown HIV infection such that our body is unable to protect us from infections. And that's what we call acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So when you get a deficiency syndrome, which is acquired because of the presence of the human immunodeficiency virus, then we say you have AIDS. And that is the final stage of HIV. At that stage, it's terrible. So you see, when this whole thing started some years ago, we saw pictures of AIDS, not HIV. And so maybe that was a bit helpful. It made people become a bit more careful in taking some risky behaviors and made people very careful not to find themselves in this state. Unfortunately, at the time, we said it had no cure. Today, we are not saying it has a cure. We say it has treatment. Still no cure. The radio and TV stations will give you all kinds of information saying that there's some herbal medications that can magically handle the situation. It is not true. Up till now, we have not found any herbal medication that can cure. Maybe there are herbal medications that can boost the immune system to an extent, to give you some ability to manage the condition. But to say it's a cure, we have not found any herbal medication that can cure. So now let's look at the epidemiology of this condition in Ghana. Today, we live with about 334,000 people who are confirmed HIV positive patients. And fortunately, almost 85 to 90% of all of them are on treatment, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. Our challenge rather is that amongst this number, some of them over a period stop being on treatment. So they listen to the radio, they listen to the doctors at home, they listen to a few other people, and they change their mind and they will stop being on treatment. And when that happens, the unfortunate happens. Their CD4 counts, which we use as a measure to determine how bad or good their status is, changes. I told you from start that the virus attacks the CD4 cells and they destroy them to a point of almost depletion. And then the body has no capability to fight infection. So this CD4 count, which is what we call the viral load, the CD4 count is very important to us. And also now we do what we call the viral load, which helps us to appreciate the degree of infection and how bad the scenario is for each person who's seen to be HIV positive. What is the national adult prevalence? When we say prevalence, we are looking at those in the age range of 15 to 49 years. It's about 1.49%, which to a large extent is far better than what it used to be some years ago. But 1.49% of the population is very significant. You see, as clinicians, when we talk about these percentages, I know those of us who do a lot of mathematics and deal with numbers, you'll be thinking about, 1.4. That's very small. No, it is not small. Because even if it is 1%, and we are talking about 38 or thereabout million people, then you can understand. Do you understand? So 1% of 38 million is a good number. And the issue with health is that when one person dies, it's a big problem. One. So when we are talking about 1% of millions, it's still a large number. Okay? So please, don't look at the numbers and say, so why are we talking about something that is in 1% and less than 2%? No. It's about a human life that should needlessly not die. Okay. In 2024 alone, over 15,000 new HIV infections occurred. Only 2024. Over 15,000. Those of us sitting here, if I'm doing numbers, will not be more than 60. Even if we are more than 60, we will not be more than 100. But we're talking about 15,000 of such healthy, young, and occasionally elderly people have died because of something that I at the time would consider very avoidable. But how is HIV spread? Okay, there's something called a virus that can spread from person to person, yes. But how do we spread it? And this is the reason why we are talking. We are talking because some of the things that spread it are completely avoidable. And this is why I am happy we are talking about it here as a church group. You see, I'm going to mention the 4 main ways it is spread. One is unprotected sex with an infected person, sharing needles or sharp objects with somebody who may be infected. Then from mother to child, that is when a mother has the condition during birth, at breastfeeding, and during pregnancy. These are the opportunity times that she could pass it on to her offspring. Then you ask yourself, what are the ways, which fluid media can this virus pass through? They are actually body fluids. And the body fluids, I would have to explain a bit more. Not every body fluid would be able to pass on the virus, okay? But when we look at the issues in details, you come to understand why these body fluids are mentioned. You see, the virus need to be in certain concentration in that fluid, and then it must be exposed to a break in the endothelium or the inner surface of that recipient part. That is the way it makes it easy for the virus to find itself in another person. So what I'm saying is simple. If I have the virus and it is in my body fluid, it must be a body fluid that can concentrate enough of the virus. And it must be a body fluid that I can pass it on to another person in good quantities. And that person too who is receiving it must receive it in a place where there may easily be a crack or a break in that part of the person's body's inner lining to make it easy for the infection to occur. So, if I hug you and I have the condition, you may come in contact with my sweat, true. But if you don't have a break on your skin, you may not get the infection. And in fact, my sweat may not have enough of the inoculum, that is the virus concentration, to be able to do what? To infect you. If you kiss another person that is, I have the condition, I kiss another person who doesn't have the condition, as long as the person does not have a crack or break in the endothelium in the mouth, and the truth is that the concentration of the virus in my saliva is not enough to create that infection, to give that inoculum, then the tendency that I would infect the person is very minimal. But I'll tell you a story. When this thing occurred some years back, there was a family that had a maid who unfortunately tested positive. And because she couldn't tell where it was coming from, and unfortunately it gave her a mental problem, she decided to infect anybody and everybody. And how did she plan doing that? She planned infecting the children in the house. How? She chose to use their toothbrush, to brush her teeth. You can understand that. So she takes the children's toothbrush and brushes with it. And you can understand that when you brush with your toothbrush, you break and create occasional exposures in your oral cavity. And if in such a situation she has enough of the inoculum on the brush, she could infect the children. And that's how she was able to do harm to the children. I'm giving you this analogy to help you appreciate how it can pass on from one person to the other. But then, what we have realized is that people who tend to have the condition easily spread from one person to the other are these two groups. Men who have been seen to be sexually involved with other men, so MSMs. Then females who have been seen to be sexually involved with other men, that is female sexual workers. These two groups, it's been seen that they are the ones who pass it on from one person to another very easily, to the extent of having it about 2.5% in that group. From mother to child transmission has been brought down in fact, negligible levels, because today most women who are diagnosed to be having the condition go to antenatal. And when they go to antenatal and they find out they have that condition, they are put on medication quickly. And the medications are able to bring the level of the virus so low that sometimes it's even impossible for them to transmit it to their own children at birth. And the birth process that they go through have been properly managed such that they don't allow them or expose them to the situation where they are able to release the virus to their babies in large quantities. This happens at patrician, okay? And so they manage the delivery process beautifully for them. Sometimes they offer them cesarean section, because cesarean section, what it does is that it lifts the baby from the womb and never gives the baby that opportunity to be exposed to the virus in large quantities. Then during breastfeeding too, it's another opportunity for them to be able to have large quantities of the virus. But because they've been on medication for a long time, their viral load is so low that at that time it's not high enough to be enough to infect the baby. So still the babies are given opportunity to do what? Breastfeed. But when we check the viral load and realize the viral load is a bit high, we would guide them out of the breastfeeding, because you see, the breast milk has the virus. And with this, we are able to render the children almost viral free. Back to the MSM and female sexual workers. You can understand that the issue is simple. These MSMs, for example, are doing what is not the ideal. So wherever they are using for their sexual pleasures was not made for that purpose. So for that act, it ends up breaking the anal verge and exposing that part of the body to a lot of bleed. And because you break that part, it's easy for infection to seep in easily. Apart from that, semen, which has a very high concentration of the virus, is deposited in there. And that's why you have MSMs and female sexual workers having the highest ability to pass it on from one person to the other. Now the females, the story is simple. The female reproductive area is more of a receptacle. So whatever the man has, he pours everything in there. And if in the process there are bruises, they are breaking, it makes it very easy for the virus to infect the female. I'll tell you this. Presently we have a lot of discordant couples. Discordant, what I mean is that you have a couple, you test the woman, she's positive. You encourage her to bring the husband in because you want to help them all get treatment. But in the process, the man comes, you do a test for him, he's negative. But they've been living together for a long time. And you wonder why. It is very, very understandable. You see, because the male's reproductive organ, the penis, is different in its way, it is much difficult to have a large inoculum climbing up, infecting the man. Even though the woman may be having enough virus in her vaginal fluids. Okay? But the reverse cannot be the same. When the man is infected, he pours everything in and the woman receives everything in. And that's the very reason why, for me, as a rule, I have said that if I have to talk to my gentlemen once, I'll talk to my ladies 50 times. If I have to say capital no To my gentlemen, I'll say capital no to my ladies 50 times. The risks are higher with the females than the males. But let's get this straight. Now, in Osu, I have done a little bit of work on what happens in the evenings on the Oxford streets. Young boys who want to become rich overnight between the ages of 14, 13 to 16 find themselves parading the streets, and they are male sex workers. That's the truth. It's not far-fetched. Young boys, I ask myself, what do they want? They avail themselves for these expatriates and some crazy people who have decided that they don't want to use females for their sexual pleasures but males. And they come for these boys in flashy cars and off they drive away. But I'll tell you a story. My house, or my maternal, or where I grew up, is Labadi, often or properly called La. But fine, I don't live there anymore. Because it's a big house, it has places for tenants. And so my kid sisters and my cousins have rented a place for some people. Amongst the people they rented a place for was a young man. Well, I met him once, but that was just in passing. I went for some meeting there and that was it. I would help you to understand that some few years back I was asking of the guy and they said, oh, he's passed on. I'm like, oh, this young man, he should be in his 20s. He should not be up to 30. Late 20s at most. At the time, what I noticed was that this guy walks with this feminine gait. And he throws his hand as if he's flying. And so, typically, the people in the house were like, hey, Besia, whatever, see, they call it, Kojo Besia. Fine, he didn't like it, but that was him. And this guy would always, they tell me, spends most of the daytime indoors. But at night, he's gone. And he comes in with flashy cars. But what they observed was that there was this day they woke up and they noticed drops of blood from his door towards the gate. Typically, you think that, oh, maybe an unfortunate feminine person having her menses did not plan properly, couldn't plan well, and so was dripping blood along that. But no, it was from this guy's anal area. I understand that it got that bad that he was using Pampers. But it got so bad that he got ill. And his fellow men who came for him took him for treatment, but he didn't get any better. He died in the house. One day they woke up and realized that he was not coming out. Later on they went in. They called the relatives they knew of him to come for him. The bottom line is this. This guy bled because he found himself doing the wrong. Later on, information that came to us was that his father is one big pastor in Kumasi. Why am I telling you this story? I want you to appreciate that the issue we are dealing with is not outside the domain of religion. Because if it was outside the domain of religion, you would have expected that this young boy born to a pastor and having grown up with a religious upbringing should not have found himself in such. But hey, this was him. He may have cut his life short. But the question we should be asking ourselves is, as parents, how well do we know our children? How well do we know our children? Most often than not, these things happen when they get to the secondary schools. Please, let's make our children our friends. Let them be able to tell us everything. But you see, it doesn't happen overnight. Until that child is your friend, she would always want to, or he would always want to confide in another person he considers a friend. For me, fortunately for me, I have 2 girls, and they are my best friends. He would tell you, if you come to their school, I am the PTN, whatever. If their mother is not there, I am there. Because I want them to be my friends. So they can talk to me. Please, fathers and mothers, I beg of you, let's make our children our friends. For the times are dangerous. Very, very dangerous. I am continuing. We're still talking about how it spread, and so I'll move on. So how is HIV not spread? We said hugging, no, it will not spread it. So if somebody wears a cloth that has some sweat in it and you pick that shirt, no, it will not give you, because the inoculum or the quantity of the virus in the sweat is not enough to infect. And after all, most of our skin is properly protected. How about insects, especially the mosquito? It feeds on blood, so it should be able to transmit the virus. No, it's found out that insects and mosquitoes cannot pass on the virus from person to person. We can't get the virus through sweat, through tears, through kissing, through saliva. Saliva and kissing, the issue is about the quantum of the virus in the saliva and then the tears. Then, when you share toilets and eating together, you sit with a person who has a condition and you sit and you are eating together. No, you can't get the virus through that. For this, I want us to understand that you can only talk about symptoms and signs in AIDS, not HIV. HIV is when the person has an infection. And sometimes the window period for the person to even know that he has an infection is a long time. Some books can tell you that as wide as 5 to 8 years. But what is accepted is that, you see, when the person finds himself not properly feeding and the person gets exposed to the virus, usually between 3 months to 6 months, the telltale signs will start showing. Even if it doesn't show, if you do a test, you will get to know that the person has the virus or not. So you see, this is why we do a lot of screening, voluntary screening. But this voluntary screening comes in when you understand why you should screen. You see, when you screen, it does 2 things. It tells you your status, it helps you to live healthy. If you don't know your status, somebody will say, well, if I don't know, no problem, life goes on. But no, if you don't know and the virus is there, you put yourself at risk and put other people at risk. But when the virus is started doing its job, these are some of the things you'll be seeing: fever, headache, and rash. One of the things we see most, especially the things that make people come to us, and then we are able to go further to investigate, is when the people come with skin conditions. Skin conditions. Usually, people who have the virus don't tend to get to know that they have the virus until these skin manifestations begin to occur. So what are the skin manifestations we are talking about? Especially with the reproductive area. If you have an ulcer that will not heal, have a wound somewhere there that is not healing, a chancre, or you have some repeated boils, or maybe this person who used to have some very beautiful skin now begins to have some unusual rash that has no bearing. Takes all the antifungals and the antibacterial or the antihistamines, and the skin is not getting any better. You want to wonder what is happening. Usually, that's what brings them to the hospital. So skin manifestation, boils, ulcers, then you want to ask yourself, could it be that this person has the virus? Then, when the person is now having the virus, these are what could happen. The person will be having weight loss, and one classic feature is chronic diarrhea. Chronic diarrhea. So, for me, in the hospital, if you come in and you tell me that, oh, I've been having this diarrhea, and I ask you, is it more than 2 weeks? And you say, oh yes, have you done something about it? And it didn't get any better. Then I'll say, among the numerous investigations you'll be doing, you will do a retro test. So, not all diarrhea should be taken for granted, especially if it lasts more than 2 weeks. Then, recurring infections. Your immune system is functioning super. And that's the reason why, even though there's a flu, you walk around and you just sneeze for a while, cough for a while, and you are back to normal. But when your immune system drops, because your CD4 count has gone so low, then you should understand that you'll be having recurring infections. So these are the things that would make us ask ourselves, could it be that you have the virus? What should we do then? Please, how many minutes do I have? I want us to have enough time to discuss. That's the reason why I'm asking. Okay, I can go on. Right, go. To test for this virus, usually there's something we call a pre-test counseling. I can understand. Most people are very fearful of the word HIV, even more fearful of it more than hepatitis B. But the truth is, hepatitis B is more deadly than HIV. But we fear HIV more than hepatitis B. So the question is, before I get anybody to test for HIV, I usually will tell the person, I need to have a chat with you. Some pre-counseling is needed to help the person appreciate why we have to do it before we get it done, and kind of prepare the person for whatever result it might be. And then when we have done the pre-test counseling and we do the test, then we do post-test counseling. Post-test counseling, very important, because if you are saying the condition is not curable but treatable, it means the person is going to live with it if the person turns out to be positive. And that's the reason why we have to manage the post-test to counsel the person to know how to manage him or herself. Especially where the person is in a marital setting, then it becomes very important, because you will not deny the person of his right to sex, if it's a male or female. You will not deny the person the right to make babies. But remember, we are saying that this condition is passed on easily when the person exposes himself in a sexual act, be it the normal or the abnormal way. Okay? And so that's the reason why there will be a lot of counseling. Having said that, how do we prevent this condition? This word I'm going to use might look very common, but I'm not comfortable with the word anymore, even though I am still a faith person, an Adventist. Abstinence is the word. For young people, we say abstinence. But the reason why we can't stop at abstinence in this discussion is because I have realized that despite our religious affiliations, we do not practice the tenets of our religion to the extent that we will say abstinence will work. In fact, it has not worked. I'll give you a scenario. My workplace is in a vicinity where Islam is the religion of choice. And in Islam, it's a taboo for certain things to occur. But I can assure you, I am telling you on authority that one of the densely populated parts of Ghana, where you have a lot of retro-positive patients, is in the place where they practice Islam. So, the religion in itself has not shielded people from exposing themselves to this sad disease. So, abstinence in itself has not worked. But amongst us here, I will tell you, if you're a young person and you want to avoid having yourself in this unfortunate situation, abstinence is the way to go. The second one is B. Be faithful. Be faithful has a two-pronged approach. Be faithful to your God first. Be faithful to your partner. And that would have sufficed, but it has not. You realize that even if you are faithful to your God and you are faithful to your partner, occasionally your partner might not be that faithful, and you find yourself a victim to this condition. I earlier on discussed with you couples who are discordant, where the female is usually positive, yet the male is negative. And sometimes the females will tell you that, oh, for her, she's been very faithful. I said, well, I am not God. I can't judge you. However faithful you've been, I don't know. But you see, this test don't lie. This test doesn't lie. It just says what it finds in your blood. Okay? And so, whatever happened yesterday, I ain't judging you. But this test says you are positive. And if you want to live healthy, just agree and let's treat you and keep healthy. That's the story. So, for prevention, the B is be faithful to your God and yourself and your partner. The C will be to use condoms effectively. Before I go to that, I would rather want to talk about avoiding and sharing of needles. Avoiding the sharing of needles and shafts. You see, in my previous discussion on how these things are passed on from person to person, I told you that it's found in the blood. So people who work with blood, who can expose themselves to blood because of their job, may accidentally get themselves infected. But presently, every blood transfusion, no exception, goes along with both hepatitis B test and the retro test. So yesterday was when transfusion of blood was one of the ways by which people get infected. But presently, it is almost negligent. In fact, it doesn't happen because both blood of the recipient and the person donating is screened properly before any transfusion is done. But people who work in places where they are exposed to this, in let's say a lab technician or a medical doctor or a nurse, can occasionally infect himself. But these days, immediately there are medications we give which helps to bring the virus, if possible, in the inoculum to the barest minimum, such that the person could get to a point where we say he doesn't have enough virus to be able to even transmit it to another person. So even though we will say the person is free of the virus, the person is almost as normal as you and I. So you avoid sharing needles, and when you have a needle prick, immediately you need to get post-exposure prophylaxis. Get tested regularly. practice safe sex. From mother to child, I have talked about it. I'm saying that these days there's what we call the PMCT, where pregnant mothers who are positive get to know their status early. They are put on medications, antiretrovirals, potent antiretrovirals, such that even by the time they are delivering, their viral load is so low that they may not be able to transfer the virus to their child. And we deliver these children and we test them and they are negative. They don't have the virus. Then we have talked about post-exposure prophylaxis for people who accidentally get themselves pricked. Then there's this emergency medicine tool we give. Now this comes in handy for people who, unfortunately, without their consent, find themselves having been exposed to the virus. For example, a child is raped. They find out that the person who raped the child, within the first 72 hours, is positive. This child can be put on medications such that the child will never test positive, because the medications are so potent that they are able to bring the virus load to a barely minimal level. Occasionally you get people who, without their consent, they get themselves in very unfortunate situations. Immediately, within 72 hours, if they get to the hospital, there are medications that they can get to help control the virus load such that they will be considered almost having no infection. So, if you're unfortunate and you get the virus, what then happens? So we do the testing, pre and post counseling, we confirm you have the virus, and we say, this time, whether your viral load is high or low, as long as you've tested positive, we won't wait for your CD4 count. We will put you on treatment. And this has helped to a large extent. And that's the reason why we are joining the world to say, as long as we test you and you are positive, we will put you on treatment and make sure you remain on treatment. And then we'll treat you to the point where you will get to the point where we say, your viral load is so negligible that you cannot transmit the virus. And that's where we want to head. That's where we are heading towards. It's a 90% thing. So now, for every target population, the intention is that test as much as 90% of the population. Out of the population that tests positive, treat as much as 90% of them, and make sure that even the 90% that you are treating, 90% of them get the viral load as low as almost to a point where they cannot transmit it to another person. And with this, we'll be able to help control the virus, we'll allow people to live long and healthy lives, and will reduce the risk of spreading the virus. May I take this opportunity to tell you something that happened to me whilst at work? There will be two stories. First one, there was a 28-year-old lady came to the ward. At the time, she came because of prolonged diarrhea. Interestingly, she had been told that she's not doing well. She's gone to a few places. They've tested her and told her she's positive, but she was in a state of denial. Okay? So, this is somebody who schools in Legon. So, she was in a state of denial. But when she came to us, we told her, well, whatever it is, don't worry. We'll repeat the test. If it is positive, we'll let you know. But because of her chronic diarrhea, I was more akin to understanding that she would likely be positive. Well, when the results came, she was positive. But I don't know, for some reason, she was not willing to treat. We saw her, I think, in March. We saw her again 4 months after. By the time she came, she was looking so bad. So bad that we were asking ourselves, what's happening? Unfortunately, she would not go on treatment. Despite whatever we did, she still was in a state of denial. I was one day in the hospital. She was brought in by the relatives, hanging in between life and death. Unfortunately, we lost her. She passed on not because she couldn't have been saved, but because she was in a state of denial and would not accept treatment. The question I asked myself is, what was eating this lady up? I'm sure she was asking herself, what crazy decisions did I take yesterday? What stupid risks did I take yesterday? What did I do that could have been avoided? So I ask each and every one of us here, risks are okay, but some risks are too avoidable. And don't get in the situation of that lady where you'll be asking yourself, had I known? Because you see, I'm sure she was asking herself questions. This was a completely avoidable death. But because of choices. The second story is about, this woman was about, I think, 58. I bothered myself into this story, woman, because the daughters were two. One a teacher and one a nurse. The teacher lives with her in Newtown. But the other daughter, who is a teacher, is somewhere towards Kwawu, one of the towns towards Kwawu, a teacher there. I'm sure this woman has spent her life putting together finances to care for these two girls. And so these girls have taken upon themselves to make sure they give their mother the best. Unfortunately, this woman has this condition and will not tell the children. And each time the girls come for review, and I'm, they're like, doctor, but I didn't hear me, mommy. And I look at them and I ask them, so Mama Bisano. Na on cancer, so there be any near yeno. And I tell them that, well, for this one, she has not given me the right to tell you. So keep asking her. It went on for weeks. And I kept telling the woman that, look, mommy, Miss Rowe, I was saying, Umanu, who near you, send a bear, maybe I will you bet him the amount. But what was to say there, MYA. Then she says, mean to me, can't you? I asked myself, what is it, a 50-something-year-old woman, that you find yourself in a situation like this? Now remember, the children are not retropositive. So you can't say it's the children's what? Father. Do you understand the analogy? You can't say it's the children's father. These are adults in their late 20s or early 30s working. Yet, you the 50-something-year-old woman, what is it? So, the situation here is not about young people. It's about human beings and our sexual decisions. Am I making myself clear? It's about human beings and our sexual choices. So don't take it and run and say, oh, it's a young people's thing. They are the ones, the hormones are disturbing. And so it could be. No. It's about human beings and our decision with the choice and how we run around satisfying our sexual inclinations. Well, as for that elderly woman, we managed to save the situation. She's on treatment. She keeps coming for her medication. As to whether she's been able to disclose it to her children, I don't know. But she's alive. Please, take it from me. Some risks are necessary. So don't blindfold your eyes and run across the street. You'll be knocked down by a car. That will not be faith. So, when we are to treat, we would encourage you to do what we call a regular viral load. We'll put you on potent antiretroviral medications, and will help you to find yourself amongst some cohort of people who have been taking their medications and doing well. And so you see people who have your condition, and yet they are living healthy, normal lives. But usually the challenge is when people live in a vicinity or a neighborhood where the treatment center is, they are uncomfortable because occasionally they meet people who maybe they know, and so the challenge of the stigma becomes a problem. So for such people who say that, okay, if you want us to find another way of bringing you the medication, we'll go around it. Or we would also say that maybe we could refer you to another facility a bit farther off so you can comfortably go and get your medications. Whilst on your medications, we encourage that you eat well. We encourage that you avoid alcohol and smoking. These two things worsen the picture. As for emotional support, you need it badly, because sometimes what eats the patients is that guilt, that regret, that failure to take the right decision or that risky decision that he took. And that is so mentally debilitating. And so that's the reason why they will need a lot of emotional support. Regular checkups are a necessity. With this, it helps them to manage their condition better. The truth is, we have come a long way when it comes to retro. Presently, it's not as fearful as it used to be when you would equate HIV with AIDS. It is only when you fail to do the necessary things that presently HIV will get you to AIDS. But yes, don't take it for granted. If you fail to do what is right, it will get you to that point, because as for your immunity, it is what keeps you together. So when we find ourselves in situations where we've destroyed our immunity, the truth is you will get to the point where everything and anything that attacks us will destroy us. I will be stopping in a bit. Before I round up, I want to talk about the stigma. Please, I think I told you that for me, when you test positive, I stop to think of how you became positive. And that is the approach I want us to adapt. We are family. I mean, we aren't all perfect. We make mistakes, some with consequences, unavoidable. But when these situations come, God does not still spew us out of his mouth. He still loves us. With the consequences, he still cares for us. And that's the approach I want us to give it. Okay? Sometimes it is the kind of eye we look at our fellow church member who unfortunately tests positive. That makes it difficult for them to willingly and gladly want to continue their medication or avail themselves for treatment. Please, let's not assume a holier than thou attitude. Remember that not everyone who tested positive because of wrong sexual acts. No. Occasionally, some people might have find themselves either from father to child or mother to child transmission, or from an unfortunate inoculation or sharing of blades and cuts. Okay, so that is the reason why we shouldn't carry that label with us that, oh, as long as you test positive, it means you had a very terrible sexual life, and for which, no. It shouldn't be the approach. Okay? Shouldn't be the approach. So we'll try to love them. We'll not discriminate them. We'll try to avail ourselves for help because they are struggling with a thing they wish they didn't find themselves in. We need to encourage them with open conversations, but we need to support them. Okay? And I'm sure with this, we will be helping ourselves and to stop this virus from flying from person to person. Takeaways. Please, it is good you know your status. It is good you protect yourself and others. HIV is very preventable. HIV is now treatable to a point where the person cannot infect another person. And please, let's say no to the stigma. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daite. I think we'll take questions now. Okay.
So, Doc, you mentioned Oxford Street because I'm in Osu. So when you mentioned Oxford Street, I wasn't surprised because I've seen things, especially with this expatriate with the boys. I think 2 weeks ago I met an old man, maybe early 60s, with 2 guys going to a guest house. And I was kind of worried. So I was even asking the security man there, that are they lodging or they are just coming to check something? On your mobile, and I was like, if it were girls, I wouldn't talk. But for guys, I was kind of worried. But let me shift it from that side. Years back, AIDS was like being broadcast on the airways. So people were that careful with the way they live. But it's been like, right now, nobody wants to talk about it. It's like a normal thing now. I wanted to find out, as Ghana Health Service, what are you guys doing? Especially we, the guys who visit the barbering shops. You know, one clipper can be used for hundreds of people. And I quite remember those years, there was this group who normally visit the barbering shop to check if they have their machine. After one barbering for one person, you just have to slot in to just what?
Sterilize.
Yeah, but those things are no more, and it's like all of us are just living like there is no HIV in town anymore. So what are you doing as health experts on that thing? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me first say that as for Ghana Health Service, little said the better. We are disappointment. I am there, so I can tell you what I'm saying. You see, what we need to do as the people who have been given the responsibility of ensuring the health of the nation, I think we've not recognized it and we've not given it that rightful place. So, we take things for granted. What we should be doing, we should, in fact, own a radio station or buy airtime and spend time to educate people. Do you understand? But we aren't doing it. And nobody is holding us responsible. And we are there. We are waiting for the people to get their condition. Then they come to the hospital and we maltreat them. And make them feel they've committed the greatest of crimes. Whereas we are the first to have committed a crime by not preventing it. That is the irony. But please, that said, well, your health is primarily your responsibility. We have been given the responsibility to enhance. So this is the reason why, as a church group, if we are talking about it this way, from the start I said that even if we aren't going to be the beneficiaries, we should be harbingers of the good news. So maybe Ghana Health Service is failing, but in some small ways, faith communities are doing this thing I'm doing. And we go to the mosques occasionally and mention it. The issue about the media is that, you see, we have monetized everything. Look, those days, GBC had a slot for health, and it comes at no cost. Today, if you don't have money, you can't get airtime, and you can't do anything. How much is our budget? It is sad. So fine. Maybe they are waiting for you to get to the level of the pandemic. You know, as for that one, then everybody will put in money and it will be talking about. But please, until then, let's take responsibility of our health and do what we can. When you go to the barber's place, ensure that he has sterilized the machine before using it. There's a caveat there. They say the spirit that they use. You know, the virus is not able to live too long in the exposed air, no more than 3 to 5 minutes. It's only when it is in blood and it's transmitted within the blood to another break in tissue. That makes it easier. But when it's exposed to the air, they are not able to survive. Okay? That's the reason why we say they should sterilize their machines. Okay? But at least, your health is your primary responsibility, right? So own a clipper. Best scenario. Right? That makes the story a bit difficult, but that's what we can do for now. And with the Oxford thing, we are not serious as a country. Look, these people who come to sodomize the boys on the streets, they can't do it where they are coming from. You think there are no laws there? They do so in hiding. They don't do it in public like that. But here, because of small money, dollar, no coffee, we sell our conscience. And you see, they leave the how do you call it? The effect of their negative act on the country. When this boy gets this condition, it is the country who carries the blame. He goes away, he's gone. So I ask myself, why can't the law enforcement people join us with the health people to do something a bit? Please, let's talk to our children. At least, let's shield them. What we can do, let's do until we are able to get things done as expected.
Thank you. Maybe I'll start with the bit on sterilizers in the barbering shop. I've noticed that most of the sterilizers at the barbering shops are, if you want, like white elephants. They're not working. So they are plugged in, but it's not working. On 2 occasions, I've asked the barbers if it's working. They will tell you no. And I ask, why is it plugged in? I mean, you are just deceiving the people who are coming here. They tell you it's not working, but they use the spirit. On one occasion, when I got there, he had just finished with someone, and also Betanasi. And the one he just finished using on the guy, we're going to use on my head. I said, but if not sterilized, they say, oh, the spirit will work and the same way the sterilizer is supposed to. And I had to wait for him to put it in there. I made sure it was working. Subsequently, I've purchased my own clipper, which I think is better. You can't trust these barbers. They don't care. I mean, for want of a better word, they don't care. Also, on the stigma, you mentioned that, and I think it's one thing we need to disabuse our minds of. When you get to hear that someone has contracted HIV, the first thing you think about is having sex irresponsibly. But there are other ways you can contract it. So once you get to think like that, we see them in a certain way, and we tend to stigmatize them. And we are not supposed to do that. So let's have it in our minds that there are other ways, several other ways you can contract HIV, and sexual irresponsibility, if you will, is not the only way you can contract it. And what I remember also, I mean, back in the day, say primary, you watch TV, you see the books, and the picture that is painted of HIV is a scary one.
Yes, those ones are AIDS, not HIV.
Well, yes, yes, but I mean, you are scared to live carelessly. You see pictures of people lying in bed with skin rashes. They are visibly very sick. You get it, and you see it, and you are scared that no, you don't live your life, or this could be your fate. So, I think these days people have become nonchalant. They are living carelessly, and that has maybe contributed to the increase in cases right now. I was listening to, I think, City or Joy recently, and I think Ghana is commissioned a survey, and there's an increase in the cases in particularly our capitals.
Sure.
And one of the causes is that...
Let me mention the capitals for you. Greater Accra, Kumasi, Central Region, and Eastern Region.
Yes. So the numbers are really skyrocketing. Yeah. And one of the causes they mentioned was that people have stopped using condoms. Because that's what they said on the radio. Yeah. Because they find it pleasurable without it. You get it. And I think Ghana Health Service need to do a bit more to educate people. I mean, it's still out there. If you are not careful, you contract it, and it could be very dire for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, from what he's saying, we have more to do. Ghana Health Service, we've just got a lot to do. I think we are sleeping on our responsibilities, so we've just got a lot to do.
Hello, fine doctor, you go banushi.
Over there no gawa.
Fine, je no koshi. Why, mami onu pako ike beke yoko ba so. Ni beke ke ba tashi rashi sike you to cash na jaji. Ni se na ma na ka fa ka doc. Ewie wo cha wo order. Wo ka beke ewie ake. E mami ewie ake ka ba. Shi beke eba. Ni se ko na eba. He te back. Mami e woni se la ka recently mami e den che egbo. She like 8 no ko. She beke e fi ake small neighbor so. No ne ke sa ne to ba fi no fete ni ake ba. O ba ne ke ba pa se mi fe. Na ke ba fe to beke bi ejo. Ile. O fa ne ka no ko yo ya ke mi ke fi gba na.
E o ra do.
O fa ne ka no ko fi mo ke ko no ke e ante ko no akwa bo no ba fi.
Boni Gigi ke ba hie. Lukwa ni yo bia bombode na kwa ke abanye akegbe aya in our core skin diseases. You take the responsibility as a church to try and care for her skin disease. In the process, if you confirm that maybe she has this condition, then she is properly guided into treatment. You understand? But you cannot disenfranchise her because of her skin condition. Libi koko mehuke skin conditions ba. Well, the fact that a skin condition no each one no you ne hey no yo you get it. So can claim anonymous one warfare ake asafoji ka oba anye wo wale ni wokwa ka waka ka woncha skin problem in the process I feel test bi no ka fe test ni lele ne kenoku ke oba wale ko ni wo question the fact that your skin problem get that engineer on water any infection infect well. That's not a problem. But it's good as a church. We work at least that's what we can do as a fellowship. You can't compel her. You can take that decision a bit. Koni ke semi afe investigations in lele no kuna kae. Keke wana abono obafi. The issue is as long as o confirm ikwe onyo kake nakani. No ja wo fake test and one ake ndaka no ko jiri sane keke wabonu oyo onyo ke wale. So maybe this is what I'll suggest. If you know the person, you might suggest to the church health committee to find a very nice way of encouraging them to avail themselves for treatment for the skin condition, not what we are talking about. But part of the treatment would permit you to now investigate further. And then if there's any help, we can take it from there.
Yes. Thank you, Doc. Doc, two things. One is the free condom that they used to share some time back. When we were younger, there were free condom. Today, it is not that common. And maybe the cost of condom, because I think in the time back it was Champion and all that were cheap. Now we don't have it. The ones that we have, if you go to the drugstores, it's like the cost of a ball of kinky. So usually those, let's say those on the streets who may be so engaged may not be able to afford it. Now we know that Trump is also cutting back.
Yeah.
So how then as a nation do we try to improve some of these? And then you mentioned that Ghana Health may not have money. But in the past, although I disagreed, ADRA together with the Catholic Relief Agency, they came together to do huge promos on the use of condoms. So what is also happening with the NGOs? Because even before Trump cut back, we're not seeing so many NGOs in the space. So these two things, how do we get back to giving free condoms? And then secondly, about the NGOs, how are you also whipping them up to come online?
You see, these NGOs get their fundings from multilateral groups and some bigger countries who have understood the issue and want to help. But when they don't get funding, usually you see, things that promote funding are because of data. Oh, they look at your data and say, okay, you are doing well. So let's not concentrate on that area again. There are other things we could channel our money into. So it looked like at a time we were winning. So yes, it got to a point where we were like, we've gotten hold of the situation. It was not overwhelming anymore. And that's the reason why most of the NGOs lost their funding to that. And so they couldn't do much. When they don't have funding for something, they wouldn't just get it done. Do you understand? Fine. Now we've understood that as a country, much of our health resource is not coming from us alone. It's from multilateral groups and NGOs and things like that. So we need to be very careful about how we start blowing our horns and saying we can do without them. Okay? And so, yes, maybe as these numbers begin to increase again, they will see need to push their money into that area again. And with the adverts and things, it's still about money. It's still about money because when you talk to them, they'll be like, they don't have funding for it. Now, Trump has decided that we don't deserve the kind of money they are giving to us. So it's going to get even worse, especially as it is now. All the our retrovirals are coming from overseas. We don't produce any here. We are talking to the pharmaceutical companies here and to see whether they can start producing antiretrovirals. It's a thing on discussion. As to whether they'll be able to do it and how much they will need for that, it's another question. So as it is today now, if they stop giving us antiretrovirals, we are back to square one. As it is now, they supply all our antiretrovirals.
Yes, doctor, thank you. I forgot to ask about the treatment. Is it free? If not, is this subsidized?
Interestingly, as a policy for Ghana, all our antiretrovirals are free. Free to the letter. Just avail yourself and you get your medications. And now the medications are coming in very compact, user-friendly capsules. It's just one capsule, either 2 or 3 medications in one. So you don't have to take 1, 2, 3 medications at different times. No, just one capsule.
Doc, the free condom. If you are giving free antiretroviral, then I mean the preventive, the free condom.
Yeah. The thing is all about funds. Where there's funds for it, they will provide it. But they don't have the funds. You see, these things are not produced in here. These things we call free. They are expensive, but it's just that somebody has paid for it. It is only free because somebody has paid for it. It's not because it's free. But if nobody pays for it, it's no more free. So, yes, it did help to a large extent because, I mean, it's such that there are some people who will never stop what they want to do. So let them do it at least with some protection such that you don't expose the other people. And that's the reason why those were given. But it's all about money. It's all about money.
Any more questions? Okay. So thank you so much, Doc. I believe we've learned a lot. And let's remember, HIV is preventable, and I'll encourage us all to know our HIV status.
Let me tell you a secret about why I cannot stop knowing my status every 3 months. Every 3 months, I donate blood. I happen to be O negative. So whether I like it or not, every 3 months, my status will be told to me. Maybe you can as well assume that position and choose to donate some blood every year. You get to know your status. Free. 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 Screening, free. Free.
Okay. So to end our program, let's please be on our feet as we say our closing prayer. Elder Ainen, please, can you say the closing prayer, please?
Shall we pray? Loving Father, we thank you so much that, Lord, you give us word in due season. Father, you give us word that help us to live this life, that we can have a fruitful life, we can live to the max, so that, Lord, we can also serve you better. The lessons we have learned today, we pray that by your grace we will apply them, especially as it pertains to us making the right decisions at the right time, so that, Lord, we don't live with regrets. Father, when we find ourselves in situations, we pray that you help us that we'll do what is right. But most importantly, help us to avoid any such situations in the first place. Father, help us to live right, to honor you with our lives, oh Father, and to do the best that we can to glorify your name and to propagate the message that you have given to us. Things we've learned, help us to also share when the opportunity comes. We thank you for Doc's life. May you continue to bless him in this ministry and continue to show him favor too. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you all for coming and have a blessed week. Miss Pa.